Hello everyone and welcome to Grammar Lesson 5. So, either at the top of your page or where your last notes left off, please put the word date, a colon, and then today's date, the day, the month, the year. Then put down the word grammar, a colon, and lesson number 5. The date, grammar lesson number 5. Go ahead and skip a line after that. Write down the word adjectives. Put in parentheses there, ABJ, period. That will be the abbreviation that we use for adjectives. Put a colon and skip 2 lines. That's where we're going to put in our definition here in just a moment. On the third line, put down the binary relationship. The binary relationship. Binary is spelled B-I-A-N-A-R-Y, relationship. The binary relationship, put a colon. Leave 2 lines for our definition there. And on that third line, make a new heading in the center of your page. Put down the words, the 3 degrees of adjectives. The 3 degrees of adjectives. Let's set that heading off from the rest of the content. So go ahead and underline the 3 degrees of adjectives. I'm going to move my notes to the top of the page, leaving the last note there. Under the 3 degrees of adjectives, please write down these 3 words and try to match the spacing on my page. Over on the left-hand side, the word positive. Go ahead and underline it as well. Just about in the middle, between the 2 margins, put down the word comparative. C-O-M-P-A-R-A-T-I-V-E, and underline that as well, comparative. And finally, over on the right-hand side, you can write across the margin line if you want. Write down this word, superlative, S-U-P-E-R-L-A-T-I-V-E, and go ahead and underline superlative as well. Those will be our 3 degrees of adjectives. I'll be explaining those through the use of examples. So underneath that, I like to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th line down below, write down these words, proper adjectives. Go ahead and underline proper adjectives. Put a colon out there. We'll be adding the definition in a moment. And underneath proper adjectives, skip 2 lines, 1, 2, and on the 3rd line, put the word articles, A-R-T-I-C-L-E-S, articles, and a colon. Go ahead and underline it as well. While you're doing that, I'm going to move my notes again, leaving the last note at the top of the page. Now I'd like you to put down the word definite. Go ahead and indent it a little bit. That'll set it off from its heading above. Definite, D-E-F-I-N-A-T-E, and a colon. D-E-F-I-N-A-T-E, and a colon. Then we're going to have a couple lines. We're going to leave empty, and on the 3rd line, we're going to put down the word indefinite. I-N-D-E-F-I-N-A-T-E. Indefinite, and another colon. Okay, make note of the formatting here. You're going to skip a line, and on the 2nd line, indented 1 more time, put down the word remember, and a colon. And the abbreviation EX. We'll use the abbreviation EX to mean examples. That should take you pretty close to the bottom of your page. I'll head back up to the top, and let's get started. First, let's start off with a definition. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or pronoun. If I'm writing, you should be writing as well. A word that modifies a noun or pronoun. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or pronoun. That should leave us an extra line in there. We're going to head down to the binary relationship. Without a noun or pronoun, there can be no adjective. Without a noun or pronoun, without a noun or pronoun, there can be no adjective. There can be no adjective. Without a noun or pronoun, oh, I put down the can be. There can be no adjective. That should leave us an extra line there. Moving on down, there are 3 degrees of adjectives. Actually, let me pause for a second and explain that, give you a chance to catch up with your notes. So without a noun or a pronoun, there can be no adjective. So for example, the definition of a moon is an object that orbits a planet. So without a planet, there can be no moon. So let's think of it that way. The noun in this case would be the planet, or the pronoun would be the planet, and the adjective would be the moon. So without the planet, there can be no moon, or without a noun or pronoun, there can be no adjective. Okay, it doesn't work the other way around though. There can be a noun and no adjective, just the same as a planet can exist without having a moon. Go ahead and skip a line there. Underneath, we have the 3 degrees of adjectives. I'm going to go ahead and readjust my page here. So we have 3 degrees of adjectives: positive, comparative, and superlative. Now the terms here, comparative and superlative, will make sense. They'll be easy to remember. Positive oftentimes just confuses my students. So I don't want you to think of positive in the sense of like the opposite of negative. Okay, positive is the starting point for an adjective. Let me give you an example here. This will help understand it. So a positive form adjective is small. Okay, another positive form adjective might be tall. You could also use short. Okay, doesn't matter. Another positive form of an adjective might be mean. Okay, now some people might say mean isn't positive. If you're thinking that way, then you're thinking of positive as in the opposite of negative, and that's not the case. We're thinking of positive here as the starting point. Think of it as like the number 1 on a number line. So number 2 on the number line would be comparative. It's the next version of this same adjective. So as small as the positive degree, smaller is the comparative degree. Now that makes sense because in the word comparative, you might be able to hear the word compare. So I use the comparative form of the adjective when I am comparing 2 things. This is smaller than that. Okay, the superlative of small, super means over. So it means it's over everything else. So we have small, smaller, and smallest. So you might be able to finish the last 4 here. If we have tall, the comparative version would be taller, and the superlative version would be tallest. And finally here we have mean, meaner, and meanest. I'm going to readjust the page here. My last notes are at the top. Proper adjectives. Proper adjectives. These things can be a little tricky. So Let's start with the definition. These special adjectives are made from proper nouns. These special, S-P-E-C-I-A-L, adjectives are made from proper nouns. Okay, let me give you an example here. We have a proper noun, America. I change that into a proper adjective by using this proper noun to describe something else, like American football. Now, if you remember back from nouns, the big difference between common and proper is that the proper ones are capitalized. Well, in adjectives, the proper adjectives are also capitalized. So you want to make note of that. Just because you see a word that is capitalized that doesn't happen to be at the beginning of a sentence does not necessarily mean that it is a proper noun. It could be a proper adjective. The way you find out is you could say American what? In this case, it'd be American football. But remember, an adjective can only exist if it's modifying a noun, so there needs to be something that American is describing. That should leave us a line between, and we head down to articles. I'll put my last note at the top of the page again. Next to articles, let's start with a definition. This is my own definition, so this just helps my students remember. These are the undercover adjectives. So just put that down, the undercover adjectives. Okay, and I'm going to put undercover in quotation marks here because that's a term that I use to help you remember to look for them. I call them the undercover adjectives because they hide right out in the open, and lots of times students skim right over them and don't understand what part of speech they are. So there are 3 of them. These 3 fit into 2 categories. First of all, let's start with definite. The definite adjective, the definite article is the. It is the only word in the English language that is the definite article, and it is the. The other 2, you either have to use one or the other. An and a, or a and an, whichever order you want to put it in. I'm going to put some colons here. So, for example, for a definite article, give me the pen. Okay? We know that pen is a noun. I'm going to put the abbreviation for N, for noun, right underneath the word pen. And the is telling me which one. The pen. So this is an adjective. Remember, I told you adjective cannot exist without a noun. So if you find the word the, you know you have a noun somewhere that it's modifying. Now, the reason we call this a definite, well, actually, let me hold on a second. Let's go to indefinite, and then I'll explain the difference between definite and indefinite and a way to remember the names. So we could use the same sentence and just say, give me a pen. Underneath pen, I want you to put noun again, and underneath a, put adjective. We know that a is an adjective because it is modifying the noun, pen. Okay, so the difference and how to remember it. If I tell you that, hey, give me the pen, and there's a stack of pens on your desk, you're going to ask me, well, which one do you want? The reason you ask me that is because the definite article, the, indicates that I am definitely sure which one I want. If, on the other hand, you're in the same situation with a stack of pens in front of you and I say, give me a pen, you'll just grab one and hand it to me. Okay, you won't ask me which one because I've used the indefinite article, which indicates that I'm not really sure or I don't really mind. Give me a pen. Okay, now, The last notes here, let me move this up a little bit. The last note at the top of the page. Okay, so a little bit about a and an. Here's what I want you to remember. Use an when the next sound is a vowel sound. So let's go ahead and put that down. Use an, and I'll put it in quotation marks so it makes sense in my notes, when the next sound is a vowel sound. Go ahead and use the margin there. Okay, use an when the next sound is a vowel sound. Now, what I want you to do too is I want you to go under and underline the word sound. A lot of students get confused. They think the next letter needs to be an A, but that's not always the case. It's the sound that matters. So let's use some examples here to better understand this concept. For example, I would say an apple. Hand me an apple. I would say it's an honor to meet you. Now let's pause here and reflect on this a little bit. I'm supposed to use an when the next sound is a vowel sound. The first letter of honor is H. The first sound is ah. It's an O sound. Okay, so I would say it's an honor to meet you. Another example. Miles an hour. That car is traveling at 60 miles an hour. Again, the first letter of hour is H, but we're going to use an here again because the first sound of hour, again, is ah, ow, ow, ah, hour. And one more exception here. That kid can ride a unicycle. So I've used the indefinite article a in front of unicycle. It starts with a vowel. Looks like I should be using an. But if you listen to the very first sound of unicycle, it's using like a Y. Okay, unicycle. So we wouldn't say that kid can ride an unicycle. Sounds a little strange. So that will lead us to the end of the notes for today. A very, very quick note session, but a very, very important one. So that's the quick notes on adjectives. That means we've done the first three parts of speech. We've talked about nouns, we've talked about pronouns, and we've talked about adjectives. So I will see you at lesson 5.1.